Jesus and the Buddha, Unrevealed Secrets of Spiritual Leaders. Welcome back everyone to Mind Podcast. This video will take you on a journey to explore the profound teachings and philosophies of two of the most influential figures in history, the Buddha and Jesus. These individuals are not only revered spiritual leaders but also symbols of wisdom and virtue, who have shaped the spiritual, moral, and cultural foundations of many societies worldwide. By learning about their lives, teachings, and the scriptures that record their words, this video will open up different paths and intersections in Buddhist and Christian thought, providing you with deep and fresh insights. Explore and experience how comparing the teachings of the Buddha and Jesus brings profound understanding of the world's two largest religions, Buddhism and Christianity. This analysis highlights the unique theological and philosophical aspects of each religion, while also revealing common grounds that can bridge cultural and religious divides. By examining how both leaders addressed human suffering, ethical living, and the pursuit of spiritual enlightenment, we can gain a deeper understanding of each tradition and foster greater respect for their impact on individual lives and global cultures. This exploration is particularly relevant in today's globalized world, where interfaith dialogue and mutual understanding have become crucial for peaceful coexistence and mutual enrichment among diverse communities. In the following sections, we will delve deeper into the lives and teachings of these figures, exploring their historical contexts, core principles, and the enduring relevance of their philosophies in modern society. Through this exploration, we aim to enrich the understanding and appreciation of these spiritual paths and the profound messages of wisdom and compassion they offer. Historical context. The life stories and teachings of the Buddha and Jesus not only provide spiritual guidance, but also reflect the historical and cultural contexts in which they lived. These contexts significantly shaped their teachings and the ways in which their messages were spread and received by their followers. The Buddha, the seeker of enlightenment, originally named Siddhartha Gautama, was born around the 5th century BCE in what is now Nepal. He was born into the royal family of the Shakya clan, a small kingdom at the foothills of the Himalayas. The historical context of the Buddha's life was marked by spiritual and philosophical exploration, a period in ancient India when traditional Vedic religious practices were being questioned. This era saw the rise of various philosophical movements, collectively known as the Shramana movement, which challenged the rituals and authority of Brahmin priests by advocating paths to spiritual liberation through meditation, asceticism, and ethical living. The Buddha's journey to enlightenment began with his profound dissatisfaction with the suffering he observed around him. Despite being raised in extraordinary circumstances, he was deeply moved by the inevitable suffering caused by illness, aging, and death. At the age of 29, he abandoned his royal heritage and familial duties to seek answers, embarking on a quest for spiritual understanding. After years of rigorous ascetic practice and deep meditation, he attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, India. His subsequent teachings, disseminated by his followers, laid the foundation for Buddhism, emphasizing the middle way, a path between severe asceticism and worldly indulgence. Jesus, the proclaimer of the kingdom of God, was born in Bethlehem around the beginning of the 1st century CE. His birth occurred during a time of political and social upheaval in Judea under Roman occupation. Unlike the royal lineage associated with many religious saviors, Jesus' birth took place in humble circumstances. At this time, Jews were under Roman rule, and there was a strong desire for a Messiah who would liberate them from political oppression and restore the kingdom of Israel. However, Jesus' teachings focused less on political liberation and more on spiritual salvation and moral transformation. His message centered on the kingdom of God, a concept he described using parables and teachings that emphasized forgiveness, love, and radical commitment to the well-being of others, especially the marginalized and the poor. Jesus' ministry lasted about 3 years, during which he healed the sick, uplifted the poor, and taught through parables that challenged the religious and moral conventions of his time. His crucifixion by Roman authorities and subsequent resurrection, as recorded in Christian Gospels, cemented his central role in Christianity, profoundly influencing Western culture and philosophy as well as other cultures and religions. Both the Buddha and Jesus challenged the existing religious structures of their times, promoting spiritual practices and ethical frameworks that went beyond existing norms. The Buddha's teachings led to the establishment of Buddhism, offering a non-theistic path to spiritual liberation for all people, regardless of caste or social status. His approach appealed to the common people through its practical emphasis on mindfulness, ethical behavior, and spiritual development. Jesus' teachings, though rooted in Jewish tradition, introduced concepts such as the universality of God's love and salvation, ideas that transcended Jewish law and attracted a broader audience. Early Christian communities established after Jesus' death spread his teachings throughout the Roman Empire, emphasizing personal relationship with God through Jesus and ethical living as an expression of faith. In summary, the historical contexts of the Buddha and Jesus were catalysts for their revolutionary teachings. Both figures left indelible marks on their respective cultures and the religious landscape of the world, fostering paths to deep spiritual understanding and ethical attitudes that continue to resonate through the centuries. Their lives and messages have inspired countless individuals to live lives of compassion, piety, and moral integrity, forming the moral foundations of societies worldwide. Teachings on suffering and salvation. The teachings of the Buddha and Jesus offer profound insights into the nature of suffering, the path to salvation, and the concept of divine love. Both provide frameworks that help people better understand their condition and offer solutions for overcoming difficulties. The Buddha's teachings on the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. The Buddha's teachings are encapsulated in the Four Noble Truths, which address the reality of suffering, its causes, its cessation, and the path leading to its cessation. The first noble truth, dukkha, acknowledges that life contains suffering in various forms such as pain, dissatisfaction, and distress. The second noble truth, samudaya, identifies craving and attachment as the primary causes of suffering. The third noble truth, nirodha, points out that eliminating craving can end suffering. The fourth noble truth, magga, presents the Noble Eightfold Path as the way to end suffering. The Noble Eightfold Path includes right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. These steps, not sequential but interdependent, guide individuals towards ethical living, mental discipline, and wisdom. Jesus' teachings on salvation and divine love. Unlike the Buddha's path of self-liberation through insight and ethical behavior, Jesus emphasized salvation as a gift from God, attainable through faith in him. Jesus taught that God's divine love and mercy are the foundations of salvation, and that individuals can receive this grace through faith, repentance, and following his teachings. His central message is the concept of divine love, encapsulated in the greatest commandments: to love God with all one's heart, soul, and mind, and to love one's neighbor as oneself. The teachings of both these great masters help us gain a deeper understanding of life, seek peace, and strive towards salvation. Their focus on divine love and compassion fosters respect and appreciation for their profound impact on individual lives and global culture. Exploring historical contexts and teachings. The historical contexts, life stories, and teachings of the Buddha and Jesus not only offer spiritual guidance but also reflect the historical and cultural contexts in which they lived. These contexts significantly shaped their teachings and the ways in which their messages were spread and received by their followers. By understanding these contexts, we can better appreciate the depth and relevance of their philosophies in modern society. In conclusion, this exploration into the lives and teachings of the Buddha and Jesus reveals the profound impact they have had on spiritual and moral thought across the world. Their messages continue to inspire countless individuals to lead lives of compassion, piety, and moral integrity, forming the ethical foundations of societies globally. Through their teachings on suffering, salvation, and divine love, the Buddha and Jesus provide us with timeless wisdom that can guide us in overcoming personal and collective challenges in an interconnected world. The divine love of Jesus Christ. The divine love of Jesus Christ extends to the unconditional love of God for humanity, most profoundly demonstrated through his sacrificial death on the cross to redeem humanity from sin. Jesus' sermons and parables, such as the parable of the Good Samaritan and the Sermon on the Mount, emphasize mercy, forgiveness, and the necessity of a transformative relationship with God. Thus, salvation is not merely liberation from sin, but also the promise of eternal life in communion with God. Analysis and comparison of the teachings of the Buddha and Jesus through scholarly lenses. Modern scholars like Clifford Jones and Thich Nhat Hanh offer profound perspectives on the convergence and divergence in the teachings of the Buddha and Jesus regarding human suffering and salvation. Clifford Jones argues that both the Buddha and Jesus taught ways to overcome human suffering. According to him, the Buddha guides people to end suffering through the elimination of desire. Conversely, Jesus emphasizes overcoming suffering through a transformative relationship with God. While their methods and goals differ, both paths aim to liberate individuals from worldly pain and suffering. Thich Nhat Hanh, a renowned Buddhist monk, identifies similarities in the teachings of the Buddha and Jesus, particularly in their emphasis on compassion and active love. In his dialogues and writings, he often points out that both masters sought to bring deep peace and happiness to individuals and society. He emphasizes that practices like mindfulness in Buddhism and prayer in Christianity are effective methods for achieving this goal. Commonalities: compassion and love. Both the Buddha and Jesus stressed the importance of compassion and love. The Buddha encouraged the development of compassion through mindfulness and loving kindness. Jesus taught about God's unconditional love and urged his followers to love their neighbors as themselves. Peace and happiness. Both masters aimed to bring peace and happiness to individuals and society. They believed that by following their teachings, people could achieve a state of inner peace and contribute to societal harmony. Differences. Methods. The Buddha emphasized self-liberation through insight and ethical behavior. He believed that individuals could attain enlightenment on their own by following the Noble Eightfold Path and eliminating desire. In contrast, Jesus emphasized that salvation is a gift from God, attainable through faith and a relationship with Him. Ultimate goal. The ultimate goal in the Buddha's teachings is to attain nirvana, a state free from suffering in the cycle of rebirth. In contrast, Jesus' goal is to lead people to eternal life with God, where there is no suffering or sin. Through the lenses of scholars like Clifford Jones and Thich Nhat Hanh, we see that despite distinct differences in methods and ultimate goals, the teachings of the Buddha and Jesus both aim to liberate individuals from suffering and bring deep peace and happiness. This demonstrates the richness and diversity of spiritual paths available for individuals to achieve inner peace and salvation. Moreover, both religious paths advocate for a form of altruism. The Buddha through the concept of anatta, non-self, and Jesus through acts of self-sacrifice and service to others. This philosophical intersection suggests a meeting point in their teachings, reducing selfish desires as a path to spiritual freedom or salvation. Both the Buddha and Jesus present ways to overcome suffering based on profound philosophical and theological foundations. While the Buddha's teachings offer a methodical approach through self-effort and ethical discipline, Jesus' teachings provide a relational path centered on grace and divine love. Scholars like Clifford Jones and Thich Nhat Hanh bridge these teachings, showing that despite differences, both paths strive for human well-being and liberation from suffering. Teachings on love and compassion. Both the Buddha and Jesus emphasize love and compassion as central tenets in their teachings. Though expressed in different nuances, their messages have inspired countless followers over millennia to offer paths to peace and harmony through altruistic actions. Insights from modern thinkers like the Dalai Lama and Bertrand Russell further enrich our understanding of these virtues. The Buddha's guidance on compassion and connection. The Buddha's teachings on compassion stem from the principle of karuna, an active desire to eliminate harm and suffering for others. He emphasized that true compassion is not merely an emotional response, but a commitment to alleviate suffering wherever it is encountered. This is clearly illustrated in the Metta Sutta, where the Buddha teaches that one should cultivate a boundless heart towards all beings, loving them unconditionally without attachment or discrimination. Additionally, the Buddha introduced the concept of dependent origination, highlighting the interconnectedness of all things. This doctrine reinforces the understanding that individual actions can affect others due to the interconnected nature of the world, emphasizing the importance of compassionate actions in daily life. It leads to the recognition that personal happiness is inherently linked to the happiness of others, fostering a compassionate attitude towards all beings. Jesus' directives on love and forgiveness. Central to Jesus' teachings is the commandment to love your neighbor as yourself, underscoring the importance of love in Christian teachings. This principle is powerfully illustrated in the parable of the Good Samaritan, where Jesus expands the definition of neighbor to include all humanity, regardless of social, religious, or ethnic boundaries. This radical inclusivity challenges followers to transcend prejudices and act with kindness and mercy toward all. Furthermore, Jesus emphasized forgiveness, which he linked with God's love. In the Lord's Prayer, Jesus teaches his disciples to ask God to forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors, establishing forgiveness as a fundamental aspect of Christian life. This teaching was crucial during his crucifixion when Jesus prayed for the forgiveness of his executioners, demonstrating unconditional love and forgiveness even in the face of death. Perspectives of the Dalai Lama and Bertrand Russell on love and compassion. The Dalai Lama, a contemporary spiritual leader of Buddhism, frequently discusses the universality of compassion. He believes that compassion is fundamental to peace and survival, transcending religious boundaries. His teachings echo the Buddha's principles, but are conveyed in a context accessible to a global audience, emphasizing that practicing compassion is essential not only for personal happiness, but also for global stability and harmony. Bertrand Russell, while not a religious figure, also valued the role of love and compassion in human relationships. As a philosopher, he argued that love is both a constructive force and a necessary condition for a fulfilling life. Russell often criticized the rigid structures of organized religion, but agreed with the moral teachings of Jesus and the Buddha concerning love and compassion as essential for a just society. Conclusion. Both the Buddha and Jesus offered profound insights into the practice of love and compassion, which continue to resonate across cultures and religions. Their teachings suggest that true compassion and love are active choices and practices requiring commitment and understanding. Insights from modern thinkers like the Dalai Lama and Bertrand Russell further enrich our understanding, demonstrating that these virtues are essential for personal and societal well-being, transcending religious and philosophical boundaries. The perspectives of the Dalai Lama and Bertrand Russell. The perspectives of the Dalai Lama and Bertrand Russell come from very different backgrounds, yet reinforce the timeless and universal appeal of these teachings. Practices and worship. The religious practices and rituals of Buddhism and Christianity reflect their foundational teachings and spiritual philosophies. While Buddhism focuses on meditation and mindfulness as methods to achieve enlightenment, Christianity often emphasizes rituals and belief in miracles as ways to experience and manifest divine grace. Buddhist meditation practices as taught by the Buddha. The Buddha emphasized meditation as a core practice to achieve enlightenment and understand the nature of reality. The practices of vipassana, insight meditation, and samatha, calm abiding meditation, are central to Buddhist practice. Vipassana aims to cultivate deep insight into the nature of objects and phenomena, leading to the realization of impermanence, suffering, and non-self. On the other hand, samatha involves concentration and mindfulness exercises that calm the mind and prepare it for deeper states of meditation. The Buddha's teachings also include the practice of metta, or loving kindness meditation, which involves directing thoughts of unconditional love and goodwill towards oneself and others. This practice aims to develop compassion and empathy, overcoming anger, hatred, and ill will. Christian rituals and miracles as taught by Jesus. Christianity incorporates various rituals that symbolize the faith of believers and their adherence to Jesus' teachings. Sacraments, particularly the Eucharist, Holy Communion, play a crucial role in Christian worship. Miracles performed by Jesus, from healing the sick to turning water into wine, demonstrate his divine power and compassion for human suffering. These are celebrated in Christian liturgy and are seen as manifestations of divine power and love, reinforcing the faith of believers. Conclusion and next steps. We have just explored profound analyses of the teachings of the Buddha and Jesus, as well as scholars' perspectives on the similarities and differences in their approaches to suffering and salvation. In the next part of this video series, we will delve deeper into the philosophical differences between the Buddha and Jesus and examine Osho's views on suffering, death, and transformation. We will also discuss the importance of interfaith dialogue and how the religious practices and rituals of Buddhism and Christianity reflect their foundational teachings and spiritual philosophies. Stay tuned for the next segments as we continue our journey into understanding these spiritual and religious philosophies.
Buddha's relics made entirely of diamond? Did the Buddha leave 84,000 relics after his cremation? Welcome back, everyone, to Mind Podcast. The relics of the Buddha Sharira are considered a miraculous treasure left behind after the Buddha's parinirvana. However, their composition remains a mystery that has intrigued scientists. It wasn't until a professional experiment by a diamond expert using modern tools and instruments that surprising secrets within the Buddha's relics were uncovered. Today, we will explore the mystery surrounding the Buddha's relics. More than 100 kilometers west of Xi'an lies a small district called Fufeng, known throughout Chinese history. Here stands the ancient Famen Temple, built during the Eastern Han Dynasty. Originally named the Ashoka Temple, it was later renamed Famen Temple by Emperor Gaozu of the Tang Dynasty, Li Yuan. The temple's most famous structure is the 13-story octagonal pagoda. It is said that this pagoda houses a rare and sacred treasure of Buddhism. However, apart from references in ancient texts, no one had ever seen these treasures. Even the abbots of the temple, handed down through generations, had never spoken of their existence. As a result, these relics were regarded by many as mere legends. On the morning of August 24, 1981, thunderstorms raged and rain poured relentlessly. At that time, many monks were sitting in the Mahavira Hall of Famen Temple, led by the abbot Master Chang Guan, chanting sutras together. Simultaneously, thousands of miles away, monks at the Ashoka Temple in New Delhi, India, were also reciting scriptures under the leadership of Master Hui Guo. At the same time, monks at the Jungkong Temple in Yangon, Myanmar, led by Master Xie Neng, were continuously chanting. The monks in these three temples were all chanting the Nirvana Sutra. The reason? Each of the three masters had a deep premonition that something profound and catastrophic was about to occur. Around 10 a.m., as the chanting continued, Master Changguan widened his eyes, sensing that the moment had come. He gestured with his hand, signaling the monks to stop chanting. At that very moment, he looked out the window and saw a massive cloud approaching from the southwest. Suddenly, a jagged bolt of lightning struck directly at the pagoda. The top of the pagoda ignited, and a brilliant fireball shot upwards. Immediately after, a thunderous explosion shook the earth, as if the pagoda had been sliced in half by a razor-sharp blade. Half of the tower collapsed in the blast. The following day, the radio stations in India and Myanmar reported the incident, not based on official government sources, but from accounts provided by Master Hui Guo and Master Changguan. The three monks had foreseen the collapse of the pagoda and the emergence of the sacred treasure that Famen Temple had guarded for generations. 6 years later, in 1987, an archaeological team excavated the ruins of the tower and discovered an underground palace beneath Famen Temple. Inside the palace, the archaeologists uncovered a legendary treasure of Buddhism, the relic known as the Sharira of the Buddha, said to be a bone fragment from the finger of Shakyamuni Buddha. So what exactly are Buddha's relics? It is said that in 483 BCE, Shakyamuni Buddha attained parinirvana in the city of Kushinagar, which belonged to the Malla kingdom. This place is now a small village in the eastern part of India, known as Kashia. Following ancient Indian customs, the Buddha's disciple Ananda, along with others, cremated the Buddha's body. Ananda, who was both a relative of the Buddha in the secular world and his devoted disciple, cared deeply for the Buddha's well-being. After many hours, when the funeral pyre finally extinguished, Ananda and the others were astonished to find a few remains among the ashes. a finger bone, a piece of skull, several strands of hair, and 4 teeth. These relics remained intact, unaffected by the cremation flames. Among the ashes, something sparkled. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be a collection of colorful, crystal-like objects. There were tens of thousands of these dazzling relics. Records mention that 840,000 shimmering objects appeared, and these strange items found among the cremation ashes were called the Buddha's relics, sharira. In addition to the finger bone, these 840,000 relics were incredibly small, some the size of tiny vegetable seeds, others as small as grains of broken rice. The largest ones were no bigger than a pea. Moreover, the relics came in different colors, resembling multicolored gemstones. In Buddhist tradition, the black-colored relics are believed to come from the hair after cremation, the pearl-colored relics from the bones, and the red-colored ones from the flesh. Not only did the Buddha leave behind relics, but several of his disciples also left relics after their parinirvana and cremation. Prominent disciples such as Ananda, Mahamoggallana, and Ashvajit were said to have produced relics. However, the relics of the Buddha differ from those of his disciples. The Buddha's relics are described as transparent, like crystal, while the relics of his disciples resemble granite. There are many historical accounts of revered monks whose remains produced relics after cremation. For example, after the cremation of the eminent monk Huineng, more than 1,000 relics were discovered, resembling ordinary stones. In Buddhism, possessing a relic is considered a profound blessing, as it is regarded as a sacred object. However, many in the secular world dismiss the relics as mere superstition, believing they are nothing more than calcifications, such as kidney or gallstones, that remained after cremation, resulting from the monks' lifelong vegetarian diets. So from a scientific perspective, how are these relics formed? The most widely accepted theory is that these relics are the result of the immense spiritual power, wisdom, and compassion of enlightened monks, which crystallize into these sacred relics. Some believe that the formation of relics is linked to a lifetime of strict vegetarianism and prolonged meditation, during which cosmic energy is absorbed. Others suggest that the relics are the result of certain medical conditions. However, these theories are widely debated. If relics were simply the result of meditation or vegetarianism, why don't all monks who practice these habits produce relics after cremation? In fact, many people have followed a vegetarian diet for decades, even for most of their lives, and yet no relics were found among their ashes after cremation. Additionally, in Tibet, some monks consume meat, yet relics are still discovered in their ashes. In fact, Tibetan monks have often produced even more relics than those who adhered strictly to vegetarianism. This mystery was partially addressed in studies by physicists Holden of the United States and Kelly Mann of Monash University, Victoria, Australia. Their research revealed that crystals of various shapes can form during cremation if the cremation temperature is optimal. In the June 1995 edition of the Journal of Forensic Science International, they reported using an electron microscope to monitor the crystallization process in the femur bones of deceased individuals, ranging from 1 to 97 years old. The experiments subjected the bones to temperatures ranging from 200 degrees Celsius to 1600 degrees for periods of 2, 12, 18, and 24 hours. The results showed that the crystallization of minerals in the bones began to occur at 600 degrees Celsius, producing crystals of various shapes, spherical, hexagonal, tiny particles, and irregular forms. These smaller crystals could further combine into larger clusters when the temperature reached between 1000 degrees Celsius and 1400 degrees Celsius. However, when the temperature rose to 1600 degrees Celsius, the crystals began to break down. Thus, if the cremation conditions are appropriate, relics may form through the crystallization of the minerals that naturally exist in human bones. However, experts affirm that not everyone produces relics, sharira, during cremation. The highest likelihood of relic formation occurs only when all three of the following conditions are met. 1. The individual regularly practiced vegetarianism and meditation. 2. The individual had a history of medical conditions involving calcifications, such as stones. 3. The cremation was performed under optimal temperature conditions. One particularly remarkable aspect is that the relics of highly enlightened monks do not melt even when subjected to temperatures exceeding 1,500 degrees Celsius. William Taylor, a physicist from Stanford University, along with a team of researchers, approached the mystery of relics from a different perspective. They sought to investigate the energy fields surrounding the relics. Dr. Misa Manchest, who completed specialized training at Stanford University, presented her research at the annual Conference on Consciousness Science at the University of Arizona in 2012. As an experienced scientist and a member of the Mayo Clinic's medical faculty, she stated the following: "I sensed visible radiation from the crystalline structures of the relics flowing directly into my heart center. It felt deeply personal and intimate, yet it also conveyed a sense of unity with all people and all things. There is nothing in ordinary experience quite like it." The researchers applied methods developed by Professor Kirlian to objectively measure what Dr. Manchest had experienced. They aimed to determine whether the energy truly emanated from the relics or if it was merely a subjective perception. Professor Kirlian's work focused on studying the physical effects that influence human consciousness. He proposed that there are two types of matter. 1. The first type consists of matter that can be measured using conventional sensors, such as atomic or molecular level particles. 2. The second type exists in the spaces between atoms and molecules, a form of matter that humans cannot normally perceive. This latter form, according to Kirlian's theory, possesses high levels of dynamic energy and immense power, akin to the qi energy described in traditional Chinese philosophy. Kirlian explained that he had found a way to detect this type of matter, but it could only be perceived and measured when it interacted or resonated with other atomic or electromagnetic particles. However, such interactions do not always occur, as these two forms of matter typically exist separately. His goal was to activate an intermediary substance called deuteron particles, which would facilitate interactions between these two types of matter. The research conducted by Kirlian and Manchest on relics, sharira, suggests that these objects are influenced by human thoughts. Although they were unable to study the relics in detail to reach precise conclusions, their findings indicate the presence of an unknown energy that interacts between the Buddha's relics and humans. The reverence and devotion shown toward the relics over thousands of years seem to have preserved them, without which the relics might have disappeared. The report also states that the molecules and atoms surrounding the relics are more densely arranged than in ordinary conditions, suggesting that these relics affect their immediate environment. Professor Kirlian's studies demonstrate that relics may store a certain amount of energy, which can influence those who worship them. However, part of this energy may also be transferred from the worshippers to the relics through their devotion. Furthermore, according to Dr. Max Planck, the father of quantum theory, no material object exists independently in the world. Matter is composed of continuously vibrating quantum particles. Energy and matter are intrinsically connected and can be converted into one another. Similarly, Dr. Barbara Ann Brennan explained that matter is simply energy in a slower state of motion, or energy that has solidified. Thus, the human body itself is also a form of energy. Based on these insights, it can be understood that individuals, especially enlightened monks, may absorb cosmic energy through meditation and spiritual practice. As they align themselves with universal energy, this energy crystallizes within their bodies. When this accumulated energy becomes sufficiently dense, it alters the body's cells, transforming them into higher energy matter, which manifests as relics, sharira. Currently, there are around 10 temples worldwide that publicly enshrine Buddha's relics, sharira. These include Feimen Temple in Xi'an, housing the Buddha's fingerbone relic; Lingguang Temple in Badachu, Beijing, enshrining the Buddha's tooth relic; Vajra Temple in Fangshan, Beijing, preserving a relic known as Buddha's flesh relic; Loifeng Pagoda in Hangzhou, holding the Buddha's hair relic; Qingshan Temple in Xi'an, preserving fragments of the Buddha's bones; Niutoshan Temple in Nanjing, housing the Buddha's skull bone relic; Buddha Palace Temple in Shanxi Province, enshrining the Buddha's relics; Golden Mountain Temple in Bangkok, Thailand, preserving the Buddha's bone relics; the Temple of the Sacred Tooth Relic in Kandy, Sri Lanka, enshrining a Buddha tooth relic. Todaiji Temple in Nara, Japan, holding Buddha bone relics. These relics are revered by Buddhists as treasures, not only because they are believed to have been left behind by Shakyamuni Buddha, but also because they serve as tangible evidence of the indestructible diamond-like nature of the Buddha's teachings. It is said that even under intense fire, these relics remain crystal clear and exceptionally hard, symbolizing the timeless and unbreakable nature of the Dharma. While Buddhists see these relics as proof of the Buddha's teachings, scientific examination is still required to fully understand their extraordinary properties. However, this presents a significant challenge, as religious devotees are often sensitive about subjecting sacred objects to scientific investigation. In 2014, the Buddha Palace Temple in Shanxi became the first to send a Buddha tooth relic to the Andre Baby Diamond Certification Center for examination. This was a groundbreaking opportunity for the scientific community to explore the mysterious characteristics of the relic using modern technology. Upon inspection, the Buddha's tooth was found to be unburnt, with small crystal-like particles embedded on its surface. These tiny particles were identified as the Buddha's relics, sharira, further fueling fascination with their remarkable, otherworldly nature. The examiner, Dr. Cao Ben, began the investigation by first eliminating the possibility of forgery. He wanted to determine whether the small particles and surrounding material were artificial polymers, possibly added by later generations. Dr. Cao used infrared rays and electron microscopes for the examination. The results showed that the particles and surrounding materials contained no organic carbon, meaning that the possibility of human fabrication could be ruled out. There were no adhesives or any signs of human interference. In the second step, Dr. Cao analyzed the composition of the relics using electronic probes. The results revealed that the relic particles were made up of 4 main elements, with carbon accounting for an overwhelming 99.97%. The remaining composition consisted of sulfur, zinc, and silicon. These components are strikingly similar to those of diamond. Could it be that the Buddha's relics, sharira, are actually diamonds? Dr. Cao was skeptical. To verify this, he used 2 additional tools, a thermal conductivity meter and a pressure test device. Diamond is the highest-ranking material in terms of thermal conductivity in nature. Not only can no other gemstone surpass it, but no metal can either. This makes thermal conductivity measurement a reliable method for distinguishing between real and fake diamonds. Moreover, diamond ranks at the top of the Mohs hardness scale, with a value of 10. Making it the hardest known material. Using pressure testing is also a reliable way to verify whether a material is truly a diamond. Dr. Cao measured the thermal conductivity and performed a pressure test on the relics. Under an applied pressure of 2,000 tons per square inch, the Buddha's relics remained completely intact, showing no signs of damage or change. These results indicate that the Buddha's relics possess properties comparable to those of diamond. Cao continued his analysis by measuring the physical properties of the relics. He employed X-ray diffraction, XRD, to examine the crystal structure. The primary function of XRD is to observe the crystalline composition of diamonds. To his amazement, the crystals within the relics revealed a clear hexagonal structure. In nature, crystals usually form with 3 axes intersecting at obtuse angles, while diamonds exhibit a cubic crystal structure. Hexagonal diamonds, however, only occur in meteorites from outer space, making this an extraordinary finding. This suggests that the Buddha's relics are not just ordinary diamonds, but could be meteorite diamonds, originating from beyond Earth. According to Dr. Cao, this type of hexagonal diamond had only been observed once before. In a sample displayed at the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. So far, only 2 such meteorite diamonds have been discovered. One in the Smithsonian collection, and another in China. This remarkable discovery implies that the Buddha's relics could be composed of extraterrestrial diamond material. Dr. Cao's amazement deepened when he magnified the relics 1,000 times under an electron microscope. Embedded within the crystal structures, he unexpectedly found miniature figures of a seated Buddha. These figures closely resembled the Southern Buddha images often depicted in Buddhist iconography. For a thorough and reliable conclusion, further tests would be required, ideally conducted in different laboratories under identical conditions to ensure the consistency of the results. Only after multiple assessments could a precise scientific conclusion be drawn. However, due to the sacred religious significance of the Buddha's relics, repeatedly performing such tests is challenging, as cooperation from religious devotees is often limited. The testing conducted at the Diamond Certification Center in Belgium remains a unique case in scientific research. Regardless of the scientific discoveries, it is now widely believed that the Buddha's relics are profoundly sacred and emit a powerful energy that brings blessings to those who encounter them. How should Buddha's relics be worshipped? The question of whether to worship Buddha's relics at home depends on the beliefs and faith of each individual. Buddhists who believe in the relic's spiritual power may experience their presence, but without faith, such blessings are unlikely to manifest. Reverence and devotion toward the Buddha's relics can offer Buddhists a chance to progress on their spiritual path. Some worship the relics as a way of honoring the Buddha himself, believing this practice will enhance their diligence and bring great blessings and wisdom. Additionally, the relics are seen as a source of inspiration, helping to transform individuals from hostile to kind-hearted, from unethical to virtuous. The manner in which relics are worshipped depends on the individual's karma. According to tradition, the relics are said to possess miraculous qualities, such as multiplying from few to many, shrinking or enlarging in size, becoming clearer, and emitting radiant halos of light. These transformations are believed to correlate with the devotee's sincerity and mindfulness during worship. Therefore, worshipping Buddha's relics at home demands the utmost devotion and reverence from practitioners.
Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva, the ruler of the underworld, is he a real figure? Welcome back, everyone, to Mind Podcast. Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva is renowned for his eternal vow that as long as there is a suffering being in hell, he will not achieve Buddhahood. Thus, he is revered as the ruler of the underworld. Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva has a profound connection with beings in the world of samsara. He was entrusted by the Buddha to be the ruler of samsara during the period between the Buddha's parinirvana and Maitreya Bodhisattva's Buddhahood. Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva is one of the significant bodhisattvas in Mahayana Buddhism. He has made a great vow to save all sentient beings. Who is Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva? The name Kshitigarbha is commonly used in various Buddhist texts, such as the Treatise on the Karma of Good and Evil. Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva is the ruler of the underworld and is a crucial bodhisattva in Mahayana Buddhism. He is often depicted holding a wish-fulfilling jewel and a staff with 6 rings, symbolizing his mission to save sentient beings from the 6 realms of rebirth. In East Asia, Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva is considered one of the 4 great bodhisattvas, alongside Avalokiteshvara, Manjushri, and Samantabhadra, specializing in rescuing those in hell and suffering. Today, both Buddhists and non-Buddhists deeply respect Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva for his vast vow, "I will not become a Buddha until hell is empty and all beings are saved." Therefore, he is praised by Buddhas of the 3 times and trusted by bodhisattvas from 10 directions as the king of all bodhisattvas. Some people wonder if Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva is a fictional character, a product of Chinese imagination. However, our research indicates that the worship of Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva originated in India around the 1st or 2nd century AD, coinciding with the flourishing of Mahayana Buddhism. Evidence shows that Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva and related texts were included in the curriculum of the ancient Nalanda Buddhist University in Magadha. Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva has numerous stories associated with him. In today's video, we will present some of these stories based on various sources to explore the history of Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva. In Chinese and Korean Buddhist history, Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva, also known as Kim Gyogak, was born in 696 AD in Silla, now South Korea. He was a prince who lived in luxury but preferred a simple life and focused on learning and reading. During the Tang dynasty, after studying various philosophies and religions, he decided that the supreme truth of Buddhism aligned with his aspirations and ordained at the age of 24. After ordination, he sought solitude for meditation and eventually traveled to Mount Juhua in China, where he practiced for 75 years, living to the age of 99. During his time at Mount Juhua, he never returned to Korea. He passed away on July 30th, during the 26th year of the Kaiwan era of the Tang dynasty. 3 years after his passing, his tomb opened, revealing his body unchanged, still soft as if alive. To this day, his relics are enshrined at Mount Juhua for devotees to venerate. There are many other stories about Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva, which we will cover in future videos. Now, let's delve into the name Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva. In Sanskrit, the name is Kshitigarbha, which translates to earth store. However, in various texts, his name appears in different forms. 1. Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva. This is the common name used in various sutras. The meaning of Kshitigarbha is elaborated in the Treatise on the Karma of Good and Evil. 2. Mahakshitigarbha Bodhisattva. This name appears in the Entering the Dharma Realm chapter of the Avatamsaka Sutra, translated during the Jin dynasty. Dharanikshitigarbha Bodhisattva. This name appears in the Lama Ga Sutra, translated during the Western Qin dynasty. This sutra is another translation of the Entering the Dharma Realm chapter. 4. Kshitigarbha King Bodhisattva. This name appears in the Great Vehicle Birth Story Mind Ground Sutra, translated during the Tang dynasty. Lai Zhou of the Qing dynasty explained, ruling the underworld with freedom of will, hence titled king. The term king is broad, and this explanation is incomplete. Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva exemplifies the ideal bodhisattva's selfless actions, descending into hell to save beings with his immortal vow. As long as there is a suffering being in hell, I will not achieve Buddhahood. Thus, he is revered as the ruler of the underworld. Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva is widely worshipped by Mahayana Buddhists in Asia. Thousands of statues of Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva are enshrined in the Longmen and Dunhuang caves, indicating the locals' belief in his protection, especially for travelers. Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva's vow is described in the Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva's original vow sutra. The Buddha said, Avalokiteshvara, if in the future there are good men and women who, for business, personal affairs, birth, death, or emergencies, must enter mountains, forests, rivers, or cross seas, they should recite Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva's name 10,000 times before setting out. Doing so will ensure that spirits and deities will protect them, making their journey safe and pleasant, even in the face of tigers, wolves, or venomous creatures. To achieve Buddhahood, one must practice the Bodhisattva path, with each Bodhisattva making different vows to save beings. Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva's vow is more profound than others, as confirmed by the Earth God in the 11th chapter of the Kshitigarbha Sutra, who said, World-honored one, I have revered many great bodhisattvas, all possessing inconceivable wisdom and power to save beings. However, Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva's vow is deeper than others. Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva's ideals and deeds are described in many Mahayana scriptures, such as the Great Drum Sutra, the 10 Wheels Sutra, the Treatise on the Karma of Good and Evil, the Lama Ga Sutra, the Avatamsaka Sutra, the Universal Worthy Action Chapter, the 10 Stages Sutra, and the 8 Great Bodhisattva Sutra. Notably, in the Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva's original vow sutra, the Buddha recounts Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva's past lives and vows to save beings from suffering. These stories highlight his great vows to save all sentient beings. The prominent aspects of Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva's vow are filial piety and the wish to save all beings. This is evident in the following 4 chapters. 1. First chapter. In countless past lives, Kshitigarbha was a wealthy elder who, after being guided by the Buddha lion's courage complete 10,000 practices Tathagata, vowed, from now until the uncountable future, I will use various means to save beings from the 6 realms before achieving Buddhahood. Num 2. First chapter. In a past life during the time of the Buddha flower of enlightenment, Kshitigarbha was a Brahmin maiden with great virtue, but her mother, who committed many evil deeds, fell into hell after death. Out of filial piety, she performed many good deeds, dedicating the merit to her mother and praying to the Buddha for help. Through her sincere efforts, the Buddha revealed that her mother had been freed from hell and reborn in heaven. Overjoyed, she vowed, I vow to save all suffering beings from now until the uncountable future. 4th chapter. In countless past lives during the time of the Buddha. Accomplished in all wisdom, Kshitigarbha was a virtuous king who, seeing the suffering of beings, vowed, I will not achieve Buddhahood until I have saved all beings from suffering and enabled them to attain Buddhahood. 4th chapter. In countless past lives, during the time of the Buddha Lotus Eye Tathagata, Kshitigarbha was a girl named Bright Eyes with great virtue. However, her mother, who committed many evil deeds, fell into hell after death. Bright Eyes performed many good deeds and offered them to an arhat, who revealed that her mother had been freed from hell and reborn as a poor, short-lived human. Out of compassion for her mother and all beings, she vowed before the Buddha, "I vow to save all suffering beings from now until the uncountable future." Through 4 great vows, 2 of them were made by Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha to save his mother out of filial piety. Therefore, the essence of this sutra has been summarized by Venerable Master Xuanhua in 8 words. Filial piety saves lives, removes suffering, and repays kindness. Thus, this sutra is also called the Filial Piety Sutra of Buddhism. The content of this sutra, as taught by the Buddha, speaks of the supreme virtues of Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha through his previous lives, especially his filial piety and his efforts to save beings. In the Mahayana Sutras, the Buddha once said, "All sentient beings are parents in the past and future Buddhas." With vast wisdom as boundless as space and compassion as immense as the ocean, combined with his great vow, "Until the hells are empty, I will not become a Buddha. Only when all beings are saved will I achieve Bodhi." His image and vow illustrate the Buddha's saying. Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha made these great vows while practicing the Bodhisattva path. The content of the 4 great vows made by the Bodhisattva during his practice is profound. With vast wisdom and boundless compassion, he sees all sentient beings as parents and future Buddhas. Therefore, while practicing the Bodhisattva path, he vowed to alleviate the suffering of all beings. Only when no sentient being remains in suffering, and all have attained Buddhahood, will he feel at peace in nirvana. One can say that Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha came to this defiled world with the sole purpose of rescuing all beings drowning in the ocean of birth and death, leading them to the shore of nirvana. Despite the obstinacy and difficulty in saving beings, the Bodhisattva remained steadfast, never retreating from his vow or abandoning the thought of saving beings. His vow to save beings is as solid as a mountain, and his beneficial actions are as deep and vast as the sea. We cannot fully praise the virtues of the Bodhisattva. Indeed, as stated in the verses of praise, even if I praise for countless eons, I cannot exhaust his merits. This is to extol the ineffable virtues of Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha in saving sentient beings. The Japanese have created numerous legendary stories about him. With a gentle and endearing face and a perpetual smile, his image has blended into the everyday thoughts and concerns of the Japanese people. His image makes one think of a country doctor, always ready to assist anyone in pain, fear, anxiety, or trouble, regardless of the magnitude. Nowadays, not only in rural areas, but even in bustling cities like Tokyo or ancient Kyoto, one can easily find small shrines dedicated to Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha at street corners or intersections. These shrines, often adorned with fresh flowers, simple offerings like candies, tangerines, and occasionally sake, are always well maintained by local residents. This reflects the deep respect and trust the Japanese Buddhists have for him. In larger shrines, devotees also offer children's clothes and Japanese sandals, believing that Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha has worn out countless pairs of sandals, tirelessly helping those in need across Japan. Particularly, offering children's clothes stems from the belief that he loves children and is the guardian deity of unfortunate children. This unique tradition is significant in Japanese Buddhism, unlike in other Mahayana Buddhist countries such as China, Korea, or Vietnam. People are unsure where this belief originated, possibly from the Sutra of the Past Vows of Earth Store Bodhisattva. According to one chapter, the deity in charge of human life and longevity, the Lord of Life, is also a bodhisattva who manifests out of compassion. During an assembly with the kings of Yama to listen to the Buddha's teachings at Trayastrimsa heaven, he requested the Buddha, when people in Jambudvipa are about to give birth, regardless of gender, they should perform good deeds and make offerings to the earth deities, bringing great joy and support to both mother and child, ensuring peace and happiness for the entire family. Or after giving birth, they should avoid killing animals for fresh food for the mother, and gathering relatives to drink, eat meat, and make merry. Doing such things will prevent the mother and child from enjoying peace. In another passage praising the power of Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha, the Buddha told Bodhisattva Samantabhadra, "Furthermore, Samantabhadra in the future in Jambudvipa, among kings, Brahmins, elders, lay people, and all other people, if anyone has a newborn child, within 3 days they should recite the inconceivable sutra of the past vows of Earth Store Bodhisattva, and recite the Bodhisattva's name 10,000 times. Thus, the child, regardless of past karma, will be freed from it, will be peaceful, happy, easily raised, and will live long. If born due to merit, the child will enjoy even more happiness and longevity." Not only caring for the happiness of children, Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha also attends to the fate of unfortunate children who die in infancy or as fetuses. Without any concept of self, how can they perform evil actions when their bodies only know how to crawl and roll? Infants cannot utter harsh words when they can only cry. They have no concept of malice, so how can they commit malicious deeds? They have no concept of livelihood, so how can they engage in unrighteous professions for a living? If what outsiders say is true, then an infant is like a sage or enlightened being. Where do the souls of these children go during and after the intermediate state, and how does Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha help them? Because of their young age and undeveloped minds, they cannot distinguish right from wrong or understand Buddhist teachings. Naturally, they cannot practice to attain enlightenment. As explained in the sutra, though innocent, after passing away they cannot be reborn in the Buddha's realms or pure lands. Instead, they fall into dark realms. At this moment, Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha appears, and the terrified children rush to his robes for refuge. Those who arrive late cling to his arms or staff. Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha comforts them. "There is nothing to fear. From now on, I am your parent." The demons demand the children, but the Bodhisattva uses his power to emit radiant light, scaring them away. This Japanese legend describes the suffering that even innocent children endure in the afterlife, and how only Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha can save their souls. Today, as Buddhists, whenever we chant his name, we should remember his great virtues and vows. We must learn from him, taking him as a shining example to follow. When we encounter beings in difficulty or suffering, we should generate compassion and help them to the best of our abilities. In doing so, our chanting of Kshitigarbha's name will be complete and perfect, and the merits will resonate with him. The merits of Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha. Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha attained this position due to his powerful compassionate aspiration to save all sentient beings from suffering, especially those enduring torment in hell. This aspiration was cultivated over countless eons of practice. In the Sutra of the Past Vows of Earth Store Bodhisattva, the Buddha recounts several significant lifetimes of his past. The body, being the root of suffering, is not worth regretting, but it can be used to propagate the Dharma and must be respected. These words from the great masters of old describe our body as one burdened with karma and sin. Life on earth lasts only a few decades, not worth cherishing. However, to attain liberation, we must use the illusion to cultivate truth. Whether studying the Buddha's teachings or chanting Buddha's name, we rely on this body. In times of personal calamity, chanting Buddha's name brings salvation. If a person is nearing death and a family member chants the name of a Buddha loudly on their behalf, that person, except for those with 5 heinous sins, will have their karmic debts cleared. The 5 heinous sins are extremely grave, barring escape even after countless eons. Yet, if someone chants Buddha's name for them at the time of death, these sins will gradually be eliminated. How much more so if the person themselves chants the Buddha's name, gaining immeasurable blessings and eradicating endless sins. Faith in the merits of the 3 jewels and the spiritual power of the Sangha has always been the supreme method of saving sentient beings. Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha also firmly believed in this. During his bodhisattva practice, he always offered to the 3 jewels and relied on the Buddha's power and the Sangha's spiritual might to save his parents and sentient beings. In the Sutra of the Past Vows of Earth Store Bodhisattva, it is written, "In the past, when he was the girl Bright Eyes, to save her mother from hell, she offered to an arhat and made a great vow to save sentient beings, guiding her mother from hell to the Bodhi path. Therefore, self-power and other power must be practiced simultaneously on the path to Buddhahood, as demonstrated by Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha. He has shown us this non-dual method through his practice. Vowing to save sentient beings from suffering is self-power. Relying on the merits and spiritual power of the three jewels is other power. Filial piety is the core of self-power, using the heart of filial piety to generate great compassion and vow to save all beings in the Dharma realm, which is other power. The Buddha taught that the blessings of filial piety towards parents are equal to offerings to the Buddha. Thus, even for monastics, filial piety is highly valued. Practicing the holy path does not neglect the common morality of the world. The Buddha taught to cut off worldly attachments and leave home to enhance filial piety, not to abandon parents as taught by erroneous views. The Sutra of the Past Vows of Earth Store Bodhisattva contains profound teachings of the Buddha. The Buddha used the deeds of Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha to illustrate a marvelous truth. The Tathagata store contains all realms, including the 10 directions, the 3,000 great thousand worlds, from Buddhas, saints, bodhisattvas, arhats, pratyeka Buddhas, Shravakas, humans, asuras, to hell beings, hungry ghosts, and animals. In the Platform Sutra it says, unexpectedly, the mind contains all. Unexpectedly, the mind holds myriad dharmas. Everyone has the single-minded diligence to transcend the realms created by greed, hatred, and delusion. Due to attachment and dwelling in the six senses, we generate desire and confusion, following the karma of hungry ghosts, animals, and hell beings. The inherently pure and bright nature can shatter ignorance, symbolized by the wish-fulfilling gem. The golden staff represents the firm and true heart, free from ignorance and false thoughts. The polluted mind is purified within ourselves. Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha uses his staff to open the three gates of hell, symbolizing the purity and brightness of the inherent nature that destroys the three gates of greed, hatred, and delusion. Breaking free with the light of truth, escaping ignorance, entering the Western Pure Land, we should discern the Dharma by using wisdom to choose the appropriate methods from our inherent nature. Which methods lead to enlightenment and liberation, and which lead to confusion and downfall. We should wisely use the lamp of wisdom to illuminate. The myriad dharma of the true mind is an eternal truth, neither arising nor perishing. Ignorantly chasing after illusions is called delusion. If we generate dark thoughts, we cannot practice the virtues of the Buddha and the Bodhisattva. Knowing the true mind, the inherently pure nature, we always live with this pervasive wisdom, always living with the Buddha's enlightened nature. Dwelling in and revering the true nature, returning to the mind store, the earth store mind is returning to oneself.